Hello, my friends. It is John King, and I am here today. It is 10 a.m. on Saturday, March the 7th, and we are literally 9 days away from the Dream for All portal closing, and I want to make sure I get as much information out there as I possibly can to help you in determining, is this the right program for me? What are the steps that I need to take to move forward? And how do I make sure that I get in on this absolutely amazing program? So really appreciate everybody joining me today. Really appreciate you listening and figuring out if this is the right step. So let's start with what has to happen right now. So if you are interested in the Dream for All program and you have not finished registering with the state, you must immediately figure out, do I have all the steps, all the pieces necessary to get myself registered with the state? What I mean by that is you've got to make sure that you've got your pre-approval letter. If you don't have a pre-approval letter, you've got a lot of work to do, and we have a short amount of time to do it. So it's critical right now that if you do not have a pre-approval letter, you need to scan this QR code or go into the website, californiadreamforall.info. In the top right corner of that page, you will see that page is right here. Top right corner is apply now. That is step number one. As a matter of fact, I have an old version of this right here. Final days to enter the program. So step number one is going to be enter your application. That is step number one. If you haven't already done it yet, and the instructions are right here. Once you've done that, once you've submitted your application, we need you to upload your documents. Once you've uploaded your documents, we are going to, once you start the application, we're going to send you a link to pay for the credit report. There is a $58 charge for the soft credit report. It's the only money you're going to pay unless we get you into a home. So you're not paying anything else to us other than that initial cost of the soft credit report. Then we've got to take time to review your pre-approval. We are working weekends. I've got my team working literally right now. So if you called my office, if you emailed or texted us, we are right now available to help talk you through this process and help you to make this happen. We're going to have some people working today, some people working tomorrow. Basically, we're going to be working every day for the next 9 days to make sure that you are able to get through the program. And then once you've got your pre-approval from us, so we've completed that process, you get the golden ticket. That's when you have to submit your request into CalHFA. All of that has to be done by 5 p.m. next week on Monday the 16th. You have 9 days left, and if you're not watching this today and you're watching it recorded, you have less than 9 days left. So you got to figure out what step am I in, and how much do I have to do? How much work do I have to do to get myself there? And we've got to make sure that you are taking the steps necessary now. Okay, so that's the big picture of the process. You'll get this page if you go to right here at above me. So if you go to the QR code or if you go to the link, you will get to this page. It gives you all the instructions on what to do. We're going to be able to take great care of you and get it done. Now, let's talk about the program. There's still a lot of people that have a lot of questions about the program. Unfortunately, over the next week, I'm going to be limited in the amount of appointments that I'm going to have to sit down with people and explain it in detail. So I'm doing this live stream today. I'm doing another live stream on Wednesday. What's that going to be? The 11th. So Wednesday night, the 11th at 7 p.m. I'm going to have another live stream. If you have questions, you're not sure about something, join me on that live stream. For the dozen of you that are watching right now across different platforms, if you have questions right now, type them into chat where you're watching, and I can answer those questions live. If you're watching later, put it into chat and I'll come back and I will watch. I'll give you the answers later. But let's dive into what is Dream for All. Dream for All is a down payment assistance program that is only available to first-time home buyers that are also first-generation home buyers. It provides a down payment assistance loan of up to 20% of your purchase price, not to exceed $150,000. I'm going to break down what all of that means. The down payment assistance loan, you never make any monthly payments on, but you have to pay it back. And you always will pay it back. And you're going to pay it back in one of three scenarios. You're going to pay it back when you sell the home. You're going to pay it back in 30 years when you finish paying off the big loan. Or you're going to pay it back when you refinance the home, although they're going to let you refinance it once without having to pay it back. So when you refinance, you can refinance once without paying it back, as long as you are not trying to pull cash out of the property at that time and you're just refinancing to lower your interest rate. Excuse me. lower your interest rate and your monthly payment. You have to have made a year's worth of payments, so you can't refinance right away, even if the interest rates drop, unless you are paying back the Dream for All money at that time. Now, when you pay it back, this is the really tough part about this program, that a lot of people say it's a horrible idea. And maybe it is. That's a decision you have to make. But when you pay it back, you're paying it back with a portion of how much your house price has grown. Think of the state as your partner. The state is investing 20% into the purchase price. You are making payments on the other 80% of the purchase price. Your partner is going to get their share at the end. And so if the house price goes up by $200,000, your partner invested 20%. Now, they're not a legal partner. They don't have a share percentage ownership on title, but they get a share of future appreciation. And it's an equivalent share to the amount that they had invested. So the state loans you 20% of the purchase price. That means they've bought into 20% of your home value in essence, not literally, but think of it that way. And the state gets back their 20%. So if the house price goes up by 200,000, you get 160 of that. The state gets 40. That's a pretty good deal. Here's the bad part of the deal. All the fees it costs to sell the home come out of your 160, not out of the state's 40. The other bad part of it is any money you spent in upgrading the home to make it worth more, the state doesn't give you credit for. So basically, sweat equity, money that you spent or time that you spent making the house better, you buy a house that's a diamond in the rough and it's in really, really bad shape, a fixer-upper's dream, and you fix it up. And maybe the market value went up by 100 grand, but the other 100 grand was because you made the house more valuable. The state doesn't care. The state says you bought it for this. When you pay me back, it's worth this. You owe me 20% of the difference. I don't care what it's going to cost you to sell it. I don't take that into account. I don't care what you spent in fixing it up. I don't take that into account. So understand the rules are in that regard benefit the state, not you. But the truth is, if you can't afford a payment on a home otherwise, then you're going to remain being a renter. And then you get 100% of nothing. And so that's really a bad deal. The better deal is to take advantage of the program. At least you get 80% of something. But the state will always get their money back. So if the home value drops a little bit, you still owe the full amount to the state. If the home value stays the same, you still owe the full amount to the state that they loaned you. But there's no equity. There's no increase in value. So you don't owe them anything extra unless the home value goes up. So there's people who did this a year ago and 2 years ago, that their home value has pretty much stayed the same. A couple people bought brand new construction homes and their home value has dropped. If they want to sell or if they want to refinance right now, they owe the state the full amount, which put them in a pickle, because unless they put the extra 5% down, they already owed 100% or more if they financed in their closing costs. And I'll talk about how that works in just a minute. But the fact of the matter is that these people, if the home value goes down, are kind of handcuffed right now. And that's a negative. Like, I'm not trying to sell you on this program being absolutely amazing, because just with anything, if you are borrowing the full amount, you buy a brand new car, you don't put any money as a down payment, you drive it off the lot and it gets into a car accident and gets totaled, you're upside down. Like, unless you bought gap insurance, and there is no such thing as gap insurance on a home, unless you bought gap insurance on that car, you're upside down, because that is now a used car that got totaled. Like, it's not worth what you bought it for. And so that creates a loss. And the same thing could happen if home values drop, because you're borrowing all of what the house is worth. If it drops, there's no room left and you're going to be in a pickle. So that's something important to understand about this program. Now let's rewind all the way and talk about those steps of what I talked about, of what the rules are in order to qualify. So the rules to qualify, everybody on the loan must live in the property. You can't have grandma co-sign for you. Everybody on the loan, unless grandma's moving in, everybody on the loan has to live in the property. Everybody on the loan has to have the minimum credit score required. It's 680 for most people, 660 if you're considered low income. And if you're just below that, but we know we have I can see based on our simulator that we can get you above the 660 or 680 you need to be, then I'm giving you a pre-approval letter so that you can get into the lottery, because basically you're there. We just got to do a couple things to get your credit or your debt paid down so that we can get you over that number. So I'm not going to penalize you, because the truth is somebody who has a 681 credit score, their score could drop in 2 months to 679 and they don't qualify even though they get a voucher. So it's not really an exact science here. If you're close and I can see that you can make it over and you're committed to doing the things to get over that credit score, I'll get you a ticket so that you can get into the lottery. Now, everybody on the loan has to be a first-time home buyer. What's a first-time home buyer? It means you've not lived in a home that you personally or your spouse owned anytime in the last 3 years. So think back 3 years. Where did I live? Did I own that place? If you did, you're not a first-time home buyer. Did my spouse own the place that I lived at within the last 3 years? If you did, you're not a first-time home buyer. That's it. It's that simple. It has nothing to do with whether you've ever owned a home, nothing to do with any of the rest of it stuff. But now there's another rule that people get confused. The next rule has to do with being a first generation. Only one person on the loan needs to be first generation. As a first generation home buyer, the state has defined 2 criteria. One that has to do with you, one that has to do with your parents. So the one that has to do with you, by the way, this is only for one person on the loan, but that one person has to meet both of these criteria. The first criteria about that person is they cannot have had their name on anything mortgage related in the last 7 years. Nothing. So that means that if you had your name as a co-signer for somebody's mortgage, even though you never lived there, you're not a first generation home buyer. If your parents added you to, or your grandparent or your uncle added you to title, or your sister added you to title, just in case something happened to them so that you would to be able to take ownership of the property, you're not a first generation home buyer, because you've had your name on ownership or a mortgage at any point in the last 7 years. That person is not a first generation home buyer. The second part is about your parents. Your parents cannot own a home today. If your parents are deceased, either one or both, then they cannot have owned a home the day they died. It's that simple. It's very, there's no ifs, ands, whats, or buts about it. And here's how they figure it out. They're going to require you to input the contact information for your parents in the registration portal with the states. So that's the final step. You got to get your pre-approval from us, which requires you to fill out my loan application online, upload your documentation, pay the $58 for the credit. We give you the pre-approval letter. And step five is going to the state and registering. Now, if you're watching this and we have 48 hours left, you should be doing all 5 steps at once. You should be, while you're waiting for me to do the pre-approval, you should be in the state's website, filling it all out and getting it ready so that the only thing that's left is to upload. Make sure you press save on the state's website, because if you don't save within an hour or something, it disappears and you have to start over again. So don't make that mistake. So that one person has to be first generation. Their parents cannot own a home today or cannot have owned a home at the day that they died. The state is going to ask you to upload or enter your parents' contact information in the registration portal. If you do not know your parents' contact information, they're going to mandate that you upload a copy of your birth certificate. But they're going to request that everybody uploads a copy of their birth certificate. The reason why they're requesting everybody upload a copy of their birth certificate is in case they run into a challenge where they are unable to validate who your parents are. You say, John, how are they going to validate? Great question. They've already hired a private investigation service that is going to run the background on everybody through the program to make sure you didn't lie about your parents not owning a home today or not owning a home the day they passed away. So they're going to double check all of that. That's why the process from when the portal closes next Monday, the 16th at 5 p.m. until you find out who the winners are is likely to take a couple months. The only other time we did a lottery was back in April of 2024. It ended on April 28th. We found out on June 29th who the winners were. So it was 2 months. Now, the state has said that doesn't guarantee it's going to take 2 months this time. Doesn't mean it's shorter, doesn't mean it's longer. We don't know how long it's going to take. And so during that time, they are doing that background check. They might reach out to you. So when you do that final step of registering with the state, make sure that you use an email address you're going to check, because that's where they're going to email you. If they say, hey, we have a question and we need you to upload a document to prove something to us, they're going to email you there. When you win a voucher or you get on the waiting list or you find out you're not selected, they're going to email you there. You need to make sure it's an email address you are checking regularly, not that personal one that you never ever use, that you never check, because they're only going to give you a short window of time to get back to them if they have a question during the private investigation background process. You have a short amount of time to get back to them. So you have to make sure, you have to make sure that you give them a good contact email address when you register on that final step of you registering with the state. Okay. Now there is one caveat to your parents having to not own a home today or not having owned a home the day they passed away. And that is if you personally, that person who is a first generation buyer, spent any amount of time in foster care or institutional care as a child, then you do not have to meet that requirement. You just upload, there's a form of verification of foster care or institutional care. I don't know, I haven't ever seen the form, but the state says you can upload that form and we can ignore your parents, okay? Once they finish the background checks, it's a random draw. Now, that means that it's not as random as you'd like to think. It is random. It's fully random. But it is allocated based upon the county you live in. Now, there's regions. Some counties are a region in and of themselves. As a matter of fact, Los Angeles County is the best example. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen updated population statistics since 2024. I haven't looked for them. But in 2024, the state provided the data during one of their board meetings, and I was able to capture that. And it said what the population percentage of the overall state population was in each region. Los Angeles region, which is Los Angeles County, is the largest population center in the state. Like 22% of every single person in the state of California, 22% of them live in the county of Los Angeles. So 22% of the winners are pulled from Los Angeles County. Now that number I'm sure has gone up or down, but in general, it's matching the percentage of winners match the percentage of the population. The state legislature fought over this back in 2023. Because in 2023, when we had the free-for-all version, they said it wasn't fair that the Central Valley and the Inland Empire got a greater percentage of these tickets. Well, the Central Valley and the Inland Empire have more people who have income levels that meet the criteria and can actually find a home within the limits of what we're looking for. It's harder to get people in the coastal areas in Santa Barbara County and Ventura County, where the home prices are significantly higher and incomes are significantly higher. Orange County and Santa Barbara, San Francisco, all of those areas, it's just harder for down payment assistance programs to work. But the state legislature said, no, I want the money to come to my backyard. So it's benefiting a lot of people who are in Los Angeles County. Because in 2024, almost 1 out of every 4 tickets that were drawn went to Los Angeles County. If you're in one of the rural counties, you have like 5% of the state's population over, 15 counties combined. So those 15 counties were rolled into one category called rural, and the rural counties got 5% of the tickets. Now, remember, it's proportionally fair because that's the percentage of the population. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of people in LA County who make way too much money to afford this program. There's also a lot of people in LA County who make way too little money to afford this program. And so you have a very small middle relative to the highs and the lows of income and socioeconomic scale. Versus in some of the rural counties, that isn't the case. In some of the rural counties, there's very few super high income, and there's very few people who are below the poverty line. And so you have a greater percentage of that population is in that middle that wants this program. So there's no right answer. There's no easy way for it to go, but it's a random draw based upon the county you live in. It has nothing to do with the county you want to buy in. You can buy in any county that you want. By the way, I've got more and more people joining right now. I've got a couple dozen people already on different platforms. So if you have questions, this is encouraged to be interactive. So please type your questions into comments on whatever platform that you're watching on right now. I'm happy to answer any and all questions. I can continue talking forever, and I have enough that I can talk forever without your questions, but this is your moment to get those questions answered. And if you have that question, I bet one of the couple dozen other people here have that same question. So what's going to happen? You get to pick where you want to buy. You can buy in any county across the state, but a couple of factors have to be true. The first factor is your income has to be below the income limit for the county you're trying to buy in. All right, quick coffee break. So your income has to be below the income limit for the county you're trying to buy in. So I had somebody last week who lives in Riverside County. And they said, John, my income's too high for Riverside County. Can I apply for Orange County? You're not applying for a county. So you can, even though you live in Riverside County, if your income is too high, you're still able to get into the lottery because the state doesn't know where you're going to buy. They won't kick you out of the lottery saying, oh, you make too much money for the county you live in. Who cares? Because you may be planning to relocate. You don't have to say where you're going to go. So that isn't the issue. The issue is get into the lottery. The key is get into the lottery. The key is start the application process now. If you have not already started the application process, you need to do so by scanning this QR code or clicking this link, and there's a 5-step process right on that page that tells you exactly what you need to do. Some of you are already partway through that process. Some of you are at step 0, and you need to get started now because it's taking us a couple of days to review your application to get you the pre-approval letter. We don't want to be having this conversation next Saturday when you're saying, John, I've got 48 hours to get into the lottery. Can you get me in? I don't know. Depends on how many other people we have that have come in this week and how backed up we are. We're working 7 days a week right now, rotating, so everybody's getting a day off. But we're going to be here to take great care of you. But the longer you wait, the less chance you have that we're going to be able to make it happen. All right. So we talked about first-time home buyer. We talked about first-generation home buyer. Everybody on the loan has to be first-time. One person has to be first generation. The next thing I want to talk about is how to use the money. So what's going to happen is the lottery is going to happen and you're going to get an email putting you into one of 3 categories. You're either going to be told you're a voucher recipient, or you're going to be told that you are on the wait list, or you're going to be told you are not selected. Now, I don't know how many voucher recipients we're going to have. Back in 2024, I also don't know how many people we're going to have that are submitting into the lottery. Back in 2024, there were 17,000 people who submitted into the lottery. There were 1,700 voucher recipients. That was 10%. 1 out of 10 that submitted in the lottery got a voucher. But another 3 out of 10, another 30%, or 5,000 additional people, they got on the waiting list. The waiting list gave them a number. The waiting list is based on your county, not based on the state overall. And so remember, the vouchers are issued per county. So if somebody in your county gives up their voucher, says, I don't want it, I've decided I don't think it's a good idea, or I moved out of state or something, or I already bought a home, and so they click to cancel, then the person who's number 1 in that county immediately gets an email that says, you've got a voucher, here it is. And so you're on a waiting list. Well, last year in August of 2025, the state allocated additional money in July. In August, the state decided to use that additional money. Instead of putting all of it to the lottery that's happening now, they gave it to the people who were on the waiting list. Everybody who was on the waiting list immediately got a voucher. Immediately. Okay. So of the people who applied in 2024, 40% of them had the opportunity to use this program. Now, a lot of them didn't succeed in using the program for any number of reasons. Their credit fell. They were really picky about the home that they wanted to buy. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean that as a fact that, hey, they weren't going to settle and the right home wasn't available, or they wrote an offer on a home, but they weren't willing to be aggressive in writing that offer. That's okay. That's a strategy. Depends on what your goals are as to whether that's a good strategy or not. But the fact is, a lot of people didn't use the voucher. And that's why a lot more people had the opportunity to use it. But there's no guarantee that's going to happen this round. There's no guarantee there's going to be more money. If there is, I would hope that they're going to provide it to everybody on the waiting list. But if there's not, then there's not. And so there's no guarantee if you get on the waiting list that you're going to get a voucher. And then if you were not selected, clearly you're not selected. I have a lot of people who were not selected from 2024 that are back now in order to get into the lottery again. I have people who got a voucher that didn't use a voucher that are getting back into the lottery again, because there's nothing stopping you from getting back into the lottery. Once you get a voucher, you have 90 days to find a home and get into contract. After that 90 days, if you haven't found a home, the state is granting a 90-day extension. So you have 180 days total to find a home and get in the contract. If you find a home and then that home ends up having problems, you do a home inspection, we do an appraisal and it's not worth it, any number of reasons, then you can cancel and you can get a new voucher issued the day after we cancel and you can use it again. But that new voucher has the same expiration date as the original voucher. So once you hit that 180th day, if you cancel on that property, let's say you get into escrow on the 175th day, which I had a client do a month ago. He got one of the vouchers right at the end of August of 2025. His voucher was good through February the 18th. On February 11th, he got into contract. We're drawing loan documents. As a matter of fact, we drew loan documents on Friday. So he should be signing over this weekend, should be getting his keys probably on Tuesday. So super excited for this last buyer of the 2024 season. But the fact is, if you are looking to buy, you only have 6 months from the time that you get your voucher to the time that you have to be in contract. And you have to qualify at that time. Even if you're qualified now, if something changes and you're not qualified then, you can't use the voucher. And the rate you get is based upon the rates at the time that you get in a contract for that home, and that's when we freeze the interest rate. The income limits that you are held to are based on the income limits at the time that you get an offer accepted on a home and we lock your interest rate, and income limits change every year in June. So there's a lot of variables here. I've joked with my team that it's kind of like we're playing darts on a football field in a windstorm, throwing the dart from the entire 100-yard distance across the football field. The chances of accurately hitting the dartboard in the first place, let alone getting a bullseye, is slim to none. Lots of things can change between now and when you get a voucher and then when you find a home. And so all we're trying to do is figure out, is it a reasonable chance today that you can qualify when that voucher shows up? So I get lots of questions from people about income, and they say, John, I'm worried about my income. I'm self-employed and I've got a good tax person. My income is super low. Could you use my bank statements? I heard they're bank statement loans that people can use to prove their income. I can, but not for Dream for All. Dream for All requires us to use your taxes. But the nice thing is that if you've been in business for over 5 years, I only need to use 1 year of taxes. But this comes down to strategy. So if you're waiting because you're saying, John, I'm self-employed and I haven't started the process because I'm really trying to get my CPA to finish my taxes in time, and I know we're up against a deadline of March 16th, stop, time out. I don't want you to file your 2025 taxes yet. As a matter of fact, I don't want you filing your if you are self-employed only, not W-2. If you are self-employed, don't file your taxes, go on extension. Wait until you find out if you got a voucher, because then we can edit those taxes. We can revise the amount of expenses you show to show more profit, which means you owe more taxes, but that's going to allow you to use your voucher to get the price home that you want. Otherwise, you file it right now and you have a choice. You're going to file it the way you always have, which is low profit, low taxes, low qualification on a mortgage. And then you're going to feel really bad when you got the voucher and you can't get the price home you want. Or you're going to file it high with optimism saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to win the voucher. I'm buying a house this year. This is my year. I'll happily pay extra in taxes. And then you end up not getting a voucher. And now you've spent money in taxes you didn't need to because you ignored expenses you could have legitimately written off. There's no right answer except don't file your taxes. Go on extension. Give me your 2024 taxes. Give me a projection of what you think your profits are going to be in 2025. I'll base your pre-approval on that. Because again, we're throwing a dart across a football field in a windstorm. Did I mention I'm blindfolded as well? Like it's a very rough guess on what you're going to qualify for. And so if I can see a path to get you there, you're getting a pre-approval letter. The same as I said about credit and about income. It also applies to, or shall I say, same I said about self-employed. It applies to people who are W-2'd. I've had many people who have opted out and said, John, I don't qualify. I make too much money. I'm not going to bother. I had one that I talked to last week that said that. And I said, can we just get on the phone and talk? And they said, fine. And we got on the phone and talked. And they said, my wife and I together make $300,000. I make it 150 and they make 150. We're both salaried. There's no way to change it. There's no overtime that you can ignore, anything like that. And I said, okay, what price home are you trying to buy? And they said, oh, we're trying to buy about a $700,000 home. Okay, well, how's your debt? We have no debt. Okay, well, you know that you qualify based on just one of your incomes. What do you mean? I mean that if we just use one of your incomes, you qualify. Well, yeah, but you're going to see because both our incomes are on the tax return. Okay, well, I don't have to see your tax return. Yes, you do because one of us is self-employed. And that's the one that we want to use. Okay, but I don't care about the other person's income. Like, let me be really, really clear. If you're not proving the full depth of, there's documentation steps I have to take. It's not just seeing a little bit of income and I get to count it. It's about proving that the income is stable and going to continue. And that means I need multiple pieces of paper to prove that. If I don't get all of those pieces of paper, then the income is zero from that source. I'm using that rule to our advantage. So don't exclude yourself simply because you think you make too much money, because the truth is we can ignore certain components of income. We can ignore an entire person's income. Now, we want to ideally keep that person on the loan. And I'll explain why in a minute, because there's a whole thing about if you take somebody off of a loan. But I want to ideally keep that person on the loan, and that's fine as long as their credit is good enough. I can ignore their income, and now I'm using the income of one person to qualify. There's lots of ways I can play with this. I'm an expert at it. Let me be the expert. Let me help you get into the lottery. And even if you're not 100% sure that you want to use this program, the fact is, especially if you know you want to buy a house, you're just not sure if you want to use the program, let's get you into the lottery before the deadline. During the next 60 days, we can take more time as we're waiting for the lottery results, and we can decide, is this the right program for you or not? We can have a lot more in-depth, longer conversations to talk strategy. And then you can decide, I'm canceling my voucher application. No harm, no foul, no big deal. Now, I'm going to transition to ownership. So the state requires the only people on the loan are also the only people on the ownership. So let's pretend that you're in that same situation and you said, John, my wife and I both make $150,000 and we need to delete one of our incomes. But then I look at it and I find out, well, yeah, but both of you guys have a bunch of debt. And if I delete that other person's income, I still have to count their debt because they're on the loan. So I'm going to have to take them off the loan. So if I take them off the loan, I don't care about their credit score. So therefore, if you have a situation where you and your spouse one has great credit and one has bad credit, we can take off the one with bad credit, but you have to qualify based on only the income of the one with good credit. Can't use the income of the person who's not on the loan. But, and I should say, and you can ignore that other party's debt. So if you're not on the loan, I don't have to count your debts. I don't get to count your income, but you don't get to be on title. You cannot, even though in the state of California, it's a community property state, that is not going to solve the problem. We're going to require your spouse to sign an interspousal grant deed, granting their implied community property partial ownership back to you. You're going to be the sole owner, which means if you pass away, your spouse does not automatically take over ownership. It has to go through probate. And the probate process is lengthy and expensive. And so you should get a trust. You can get a trust that has only the owner as the trustee, and then the spouse can be the beneficiary, can get the property once you pass away. And a trust, I'm not a trust attorney, I don't play one on TV, but I know how they work, and they're not that expensive compared to what they save you long-term in cost, and it gives you a lot of peace of mind by being able to avoid probate. So it's a very, very important thing, and really I encourage everybody to get a trust. I encourage you to talk to an estate planning attorney or a legal document specialist who can advise you on that. I know some great ones up and down the state who can take great care of you in that regard. Having said that, the simple answer is only the people on the loan can be on the ownership. So therefore, if we kick a spouse off of ownership, off of the loan, we're also kicking them off of ownership, and we need to be aware of that fact. All right. how do you use the money, John? Like, what are the strategies to use money? Well, that's a fantastic question. Since nobody's asking questions, that's okay. I'll ask them for myself. So the way you use the money, I'm actually going to show you using my calculator app. So you can actually find my calculator by going onto this QR code up here, and it'll take you to my calculator. But I am going to just go in here really quickly. Let's get logged in right here. And I'm going to show you guys, there's 3 ways to use the money, okay? There's way more ways, but there's 3 simplified ways. The minimum, the maximum, and the middle, okay? The 3 ways look like this. You can buy with your lowest amount of cash to close. I'm going to make this a $700,000 purchase price. Okay. So at a $700,000 purchase price, your lowest cash to close is 0 because we're taking the money, the $140,000 from the state, and we are actually not putting all of that towards down payment. We're putting some of that towards closing costs. So you're not putting 20% down, which means you have mortgage insurance. The way I built it in my calculator is I'm charging it to you as a one-time fee. I find that to be the simplest and most effective for Dream for All, but you technically can skip paying it as a one-time fee. We're financing it as a one-time fee, but you can not pay it as a one-time fee and instead pay it as part of your monthly payment, but that is not built into this monthly payment. Okay, there's no mortgage insurance in the payment. The mortgage insurance is in the one-time fee. A lot of people do this option because it preserves your money. Even if you have the money, it preserves it, but just recognize you're now starting owing more between your first mortgage and your second mortgage than what the house is worth. Okay, so it's going to make it harder to refinance unless home values go up. Now, if you have money that you can put down, it's still not a bad idea to do this scenario and just hold that money just in case. And then when it's time to refinance, if the values haven't gone up enough, then you can apply the money at that point in time, and it will help you to get the refinance done and lower your monthly payment. The middle scenario is you're just paying your closing costs. So in this case, $700,000 home, I'm doing a $560,000 loan amount, taking $140,000 towards down payment. You're paying the closing costs. The closing costs on this program average around 4%. That's everything except your realtor commissions and your inspection fees. Everything else is in here. Now I'm estimating on property taxes. I'm estimating on insurance. I'm estimating on all of the fees, but it's a pretty darn good estimate that has served me well for the last 3 years since the Dream for All program came out in 2023. And I've done 60 of these loans now. I know them very, very well. I can get them done very, very quickly. I'm an expert in doing the program, and I can help guide you through these 3 different scenarios. And you can pick numbers anywhere in between, but you can't go any further outside of these, the edges here. So the outside edge, the next edge is if you put 5% extra down payment. So now you're taking the $700,000 purchase price. You've got the approximate 4% in closing costs plus 5% in extra down payment money. That is $63,000. 9% of the purchase price in my scenario is the maximum that you can come up with out of pocket, but it lowers your monthly payments. It gives you more equity to start out with. You're only borrowing $525,000 to start out with. So it gives you the lowest monthly payment. If you have now for some people, they have to do that in order to be able to qualify. Now you can technically buy down the interest rate further, and there's pros and cons to doing that. That's a longer term question that I'm going to dive into during the next 2 months. So what's going to happen after March 16th? I'm going to do a lot of webinars, live streams, videos, talking about how to buy a home. Because all of you in this program at least have one of you that your parents have never, do not own a home today. And for a lot of you, they've never owned a home. And so you don't know the home buying process as well as somebody who's done it multiple times, or their parents have bought and sold multiple homes. I'm going to educate you through that process. Now, I want to clarify one thing really quickly. I am interviewing for the job of being your lender. I don't get paid on YouTube. I don't have enough video subscribers. That's okay. I get paid for doing mortgages. Now, if you have a lender already and that lender's doing an amazing job of keeping you educated and they're very, very knowledgeable about the program, why are you listening to me? Kind of kidding, kind of not. But if they're good, stay with them. But if they're not, Do you want somebody guiding you who says, yeah, I don't know, let me look up the rules on that. I'm not sure how the program works. I've never done one. I've done two. I'm pretty sure I know how they work. Okay. I'm interviewing for the job of being your lender. Even if you have your pre-approval letter from someone else, you don't have to stick with that lender when you get your voucher. So over the next 2 months, I'm going to educate you on all of these things that you need to know. We're going to talk about trusts. We're going to talk about how to pick a real estate agent. We're going to talk about homeowners insurance and property taxes and how those work. I'm going to educate you through the entire process. The easiest way to stay on top of that is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You're going to get all of that, my California Dream for All channel. If you're on my John Lone King channel, you can, on the homepage, there's a spot for all my other channels. Subscribe to that channel. You can also reach out to us and we'll put you on our email subscription list. I think there's actually a link on the QR code on the page. Actually, I can probably take a look right now. I think way down here at the bottom is subscribe. So don't miss out. Subscribe here and click down here. So way down at the bottom, you can subscribe to getting information from us as well. But basically, this is what you're looking at as far as your 3 scenarios of how to use the money. You can't put more down than 5% of your purchase price. You can choose to buy down the interest rate further, and I'll discuss that as we get further into the waiting period in between while we're waiting for the vouchers to come out. Okay, I'll give you education on what a temporary buy down is versus what a permanent buy down is. Should you do them? How do they work? I'm going to help guide you and educate you on all the things that you need to know to be successful in home ownership, including alternatives. Alternatives if you aren't selected. Alternatives, even if you are selected, but you decide this isn't a good idea. Alternatives, in case you find the perfect home while you're waiting and you're either on the wait list or waiting because the vouchers haven't been announced yet. I want to help guide you and provide you with alternatives. All right. I've covered most of everything that I want to cover today. I've got about 20 minutes left, although I don't plan on taking it unless you guys need it. So if you have questions, post it now. I'm going to go back and repeat what has to happen right now. So today, if you're watching this live, we are 9 days away from the portal closing, and there is so much confusion out there. There are so many people out there, some of you that I've been reaching out to who have said, hey, John, I went on to CalHFA and I went here to find a loan officer, and I went to, where's the spot here? I think it's just right. Lender database, and there's a questionnaire in here. I don't know where it's at. Anyway, I'm on here, but there's a whole process of I don't like that process. There's a link that you can go to on CalHFA that will allow you to figure out, there we go, am I eligible? That's what we're talking about. Home buyer education, first time home buyer, maybe not. I don't know, wherever it is. There's a link that you go through a questionnaire. And that questionnaire asks you, are you a first generation? Are you a first time home buyer? People thought that meant because I put my contact information in that I was registered. You're not. Okay. What you have to do is you have to submit into the CalHFA portal. That portal is right here. So that link, if you don't have a pre-approval letter and you haven't gone to this portal to upload your pre-approval letter, then you're not registered. You need to start the process now, and don't go only straight to here because you're skipping the first 4 steps, which is you need to start the loan application. Okay, so you're not committing to buying a home. You're giving yourself a chance to win the lottery. You're gonna have 6 months to decide if you want to use it once you get selected. Your only cost is $58 for the credit report to get started. Very, very simple process. Okay, you're gonna upload your documentation to us after you've done the application. You're gonna pay the $58 for the credit report. It's gonna be a soft credit report. It won't hurt at all. Okay, and then we're gonna review and get your pre-approval moving forward. And then once you're done with all of that, that's when you're gonna submit your pre-approval to CalHFA's portal. This video right here is a 45-minute video of me walking through every field in that CalHFA portal. So when you go over here and you're trying to log in and you're figuring out, hey, John, do they want my birth certificate? Is that going to be an issue or not? I explain all of that in this video. So when you have your pre-approval letter, or while you're waiting for us to review, you should start this process. You can get all of it done and save it so that all you have to do is upload your pre-approval letter. In 2024, on April 28th at 4:30 in the afternoon, 30 minutes before the cutoff, I had a buyer who got me the final piece of information I needed. I gave him the pre-approval letter. He had already gotten everything filled out in the CalHFA website. He uploaded it and got it submitted at 4:45. And he was a voucher winner 60 days later. 45 days after that, he owned a beautiful home in Lake Elsinore. Okay, there is no benefit to being the first one in. There's no benefit to being the last one in. It is pure luck of the draw, but his luck worked out perfectly for him and his family, and they have a beautiful home, and we got it done just under the wire. So don't delay. Don't be that person. Don't say, John, I'm going to be your story for next time. I'm going to get in at 4:59. Okay, if you want to be, but there's no guarantee if you get me the information at 4 o'clock on Monday, the 16th, that I'm going to be able to get it done in time. I'm going to move mountains to do it, but I am going to work on first come, first serve. And if I have 10 people who got me that information, I'm going to work on the first out of the 10. If I don't get to the 10th, I can't help you. Okay, I've got 8 people on my team. We're going to do everything we can to take care of everybody. We are still taking on new clients. We're still taking right now. We only have a few applications from yesterday that we need to catch up on. We got a lot that came in overnight. This is the weekend to get started. If you have not started, if you have not finished these first 4 steps or your first 3 steps, you need to do it this weekend. My team is working literally right now. You can call us, you can email us, you can text us. We will, if we've left already for the day, somebody else is working tomorrow and we'll get back to you. Literally 7 days a week right now through March 16th. We are going to be here to take care of you, but you need to get the process started now. If you have already started the process, finish it. If you haven't started the process, you are way behind. And if you're working with a lender who has told you, hey, I'm too backed up, I can take you. I've had a couple people tell me, John, I was assigned to a lender through CalHFA's web portal, and they called me or they emailed me and said, I'm sorry, I can't take anybody else. I have too many people. Most lenders are a team of 1 or maybe 2. I get it. I used to be that way. I've been in the industry for 26 years. I've built a strong business. I've got a great team, and we have the bandwidth to take care of you. But if you reach out to me next Saturday, the chances are much, much lower. Okay, we're still going to do everything we possibly can, but the chances are significantly lower. So the sooner you can get started, you get to this page by scanning the QR code that's right up there, or clicking on, or not clicking on, you can't click on that link, but you can type in CaliforniaDreamForAll.info. It'll take you to this page. You can find all of my YouTube videos. You can try booking a call with me, but I'm blocking out calls starting Wednesday. So I've got a couple spots left on Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday and after, I'm making proactive calls to people who have given us information that my team can't handle. Then I am making calls to you. So I'm now the escalation process where everybody else on my team is handling the easier ones. And then I am the one that they're bumping them to when there's a challenge. And if you're one of those challenged people, you're going to be happy that I did that. And if you're one of the people who has a simple situation, we will get you taken care of. And then we're going to schedule one-on-one meetings with me during that 90-day, 60-day-ish window of waiting for the vouchers to be announced. I want to talk to every single one of you one-on-one. I want to talk strategy. I want to find out your goals. I want to find out what your questions are that you didn't ask while we were on this live stream. But I can't do that right now. So if you have a burning situation that is really difficult and you need to talk to me, click book a call now and you can book a call. There's still some spots I'm sure left on Monday and Tuesday. But after those are booked, I'm not booking any calls. I'm making proactive calls based upon escalations from my team. I hope that makes sense. That's the only way that as we get this close to the end, can really, really take great care of you. So that is it for what I wanted to cover. Now is the time if you want to get into the program. There is zero requirement, no commitment. Your commitment is the $58 for the credit report cost. Aside from that, you can opt out of it going forward. Now, if you know it's not a good idea, I'm not telling you to do it, but I am telling you I have lots of other programs. So I'm not just interviewing to be your lender for Dream for All. I'm interviewing for being your lender for any loan program out there, including if your sister owns a house and they want to refinance and you're like, gosh, John's really amazing. I wish he could help refinance. I can. Please refer me to people that you know, like, and trust who you believe could use my services. I would very, very much appreciate that. Guys, at this point, it doesn't look like I have any more questions from anybody. I actually haven't any questions this time. No big deal. So if you have questions, you can email us. Our contact information is on the QR code and the link above as well. But you really just need to start with step 1, start the application process, and then we will take great care of you. I'm looking forward to helping you get into home ownership. We're going to be here to answer all of your questions and guide you. I hope everybody has an absolutely wonderful weekend. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.